and then in Chile. He had the best of reasons for staying out of sight. Hugh Trevor Roper, The Last Days of Hitler. Paul Hesslein, a pre-war member of our parliament who had known my father well for years, says he met up with 3 riders on the Chilean border in the early 1970s and was sure one of them was my father, particularly as he heard him say, "Wasn't that Hesslein?" Martin Bormann, Jr., in an interview in 1990. To win this war, I need Bormann. Adolf Hitler, 1943. I hope the bastard fries in hell. Hermann Göring, 1945. March 1946. American intelligence looks for Bormann in Spain. Charles Whiting, The Hunt for Martin Bormann. 1946. The hunt for Martin Bormann became the biggest manhunt the world has ever known. Ibid. July 1947. Rumors reach Europe that Bormann is living at the foot of the Andes. Ibid. Bormann was a born survivor. If anyone got out, it would be he. Albert Speer, 1971. Let the suspicion linger that the second most powerful Nazi leader is still alive as a reminder not to forget the horrors of the Third Reich. Dr. Broderick, head of the Berlin CIA, 1953. Chapter 1. May 3rd, 1945, near Saint-Pierre, France. The old peasant woman wheezed into the farmhouse kitchen, plunking her bag of leeks on the table where the 2 men, her husband and the stranger, sat with their morning glasses of café au lait. "They are saying in the market," she panted, sagging into a chair, "that Adolf Hitler is dead. I do not believe it. You will see. Hitler is not dead." Her husband, in smock and beret, pulled at his white mustache. "Goddamn Germans." He puffed on his pipe. "Goddamn Hitler." The other man, a stranger dressed in expensive city clothes, merely blinked his mesmerizing blue eyes, but said nothing as he finished his coffee. "They say the war will be over in a few days," said the woman, adding bitterly, "Les sales Boches. They killed our son, our only son. They killed him early in the war." "I am sorry to hear that," said the man in French, roughly pronounced with a guttural German accent. "Truly sorry, madame et monsieur." She turned to him, grateful for his kind words, this charming stranger who had come through the apple orchard to their house late last night, knocked on the door, car broken down, and asked to sleep on the sofa. "And you, monsieur, you say you are Swiss? Then you must be glad that the dirty Germans are brought to their knees at last, eh?" The man managed to smile slightly. "Kismet, madame, kismet." She did not know the word, but she smiled her toothless smile. "Now I go," the stranger said, abruptly rising from the table. My relatives are expecting me in Spain." He was a stocky, powerful man. The expensive, travel-stained suit he wore did not fit him well. The Swiss businessman he had killed to obtain it, in the bathroom of the Strasbourg train station, had been somewhat smaller. "But your car, monsieur," said the woman. "Ah, yes," he said, "my car." "Didn't you say it broke down a few miles away?" "I shall come back for it." He turned to the old man. "You say I can walk to the border?" "Mais oui, monsieur," he answered. "It is very close by." He drew a blue card out of his pocket. "Of course you have one of these." He shook his head. "Very strict. They won't let you across without a card of transit." The stranger barely hesitated. "I have one, of course." "Then, is it possible, can you show me a shortcut?" "Avec plaisir." The old man boosted himself up and limped to the door. "Follow me." The stranger took his raincoat off a hook and put it on, then the Hamburg hat. "Madame," he made a slight bow, "I thank you for your hospitality." "Rien, rien," said the woman. She handed him an apple. "For the journey, monsieur." He clicked his heels in gratitude and followed her husband out the door. The old man walked surprisingly fast. They went down and then up the path that wound through the dense orchard. After a mile, they came out of the trees into a clearing on a little hill. The Frenchman stopped and pointed down. "There, monsieur. There you have Spain. Irun, to be exact. You will have no problem, monsieur, being Swiss, and with your card of transit. You are sure you have one?" "Of course." "Good. Monsieur, you have been of greater help than you can know." The stranger reached into the pocket of his raincoat and drew out a Luger. From the other pocket he took out the silencer. The Frenchman smiled uncomprehendingly. "A pistol, monsieur?" "Yes," said the man, screwing the silencer onto the barrel of the pistol. "A gift from a friend." He stood in front of the old Frenchman and carefully raised the gun to the man's throat. The old man still didn't understand. Then he felt the cold barrel against the base of his neck, and he heard the stranger say in his native German, "Auf Wiedersehen," and he heard the poof of the pistol, and for a very brief moment, a fraction of a second, the old man understood. The stranger carefully bypassed the town of Irun. At a brisk pace he reached Pescadero before dusk. It was a fishing village not far from what was left of the town of Guernica, bombed to extinction by Hitler 8 years before during Spain's Civil War. The stranger, the German, wore the beret and smock of the old Frenchman now, but it was an imperfect and uncomfortable disguise. The small garment was barely knee-length and revealed the German's tailored trousers and handcrafted dress shoes. They were his own shoes, very expensive shoes, not those of the man he'd killed in Strasbourg. Also, there was a large splotch of dried blood on the front of the smock, which the German tried to cover with his hand and forearm whenever he passed a villager. After passing an occasional field worker who stopped from his planting to wave a greeting, the German began to relax. Then he saw a villager approaching him from the opposite direction. "Zigeuner," he thought. "Well, we got rid of a lot of them, didn't we? But not enough. 1 million?" The villager, a tall youth, a simple gypsy by the dark look of him, trod lightly over the rock-strewn path and stopped when he drew abreast of the German. He pointed at his shoes and smiled. "Lindos los zapatos aquellos?" The German didn't understand. He fingered the Luger in his pocket, wishing he'd left the silencer in place. But why bother? He didn't want to kill the boy, even if he was a gypsy, especially out here in the open. The German smiled, tossed the apple given him by his recent hostess to the youth, and strode on. In another quarter-hour he reached a cobbled street, which led to the quay of the fishing village. He strode down the street along which the small boats were either in their slips already or were being eased into them. The fishermen's chattering women and lively children were gathering there to help with the catch from the Bay of Biscay and to scrub down the boats. Some of the boats had big lights on their prows to attract the chanquete fish, and they would be going out again when night fell. The air was salty, fishy, and pungent with the black tobacco cigarettes that the men and even the women and teenagers smoked. Everyone was too busy to pay much attention to the German, though occasionally he would get the glances that any stranger in this non-tourist village would receive. Ahead he saw a sign with a crude bull's head in faded yellow, which read El Toro Dorado. It was clearly the kind of bar he wanted. It would probably cater to the type of person he was looking for. He crossed the street and walked through the open door. It was dark inside, and as his eyes adjusted to the gloom, he saw 2 old men sitting at a table, playing chess by the light of a candle in a bottle. The wooden fan turned slowly on a smoke-blackened ceiling. 3 fishermen hunched over their beers at the zinc bar, apparently arguing over the lottery results in a newspaper. A fat woman, her neck disfigured by a goiter, sat on a stool behind the bar, smoking a pencil-thin cigar. The smells! How different were the odors of Spain compared to the France he'd just left, and even more different from those of his native Germany. Here it was the acrid stench of bad tobacco, anís del mono, ersatz coffee, saffron, and frying olive oil, everywhere frying olive oil, and cloying sherry wine. He went to the farthest part of the bar, away from the light from the open door, and sagged down onto a stool. It felt good, so good to sit down. He'd had very little sleep the last 3 days. The little Fiesler Stork reconnaissance plane, perhaps the last of the tiny 2-seater air taxicabs left in Berlin, had gotten him out miraculously,